Most people aren't just waiting. They're trapped in a holding pattern, circling the life they want but never landing. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for someone with authority to look them in the eye and say, "You're ready now." Waiting for the universe to hand them a sign that it's finally safe to go all in. That signal never comes. Not because you're lacking something, not because the talent isn't there, or the hunger, or the raw capacity to do something that matters. It doesn't come because the world was never designed to give you permission. The greatest figures in human history, the ones who reshaped civilizations, who built something from absolute zero, who became forces too powerful to ignore, none of them were handed a starting gun. They didn't receive clearance. They made a choice. A private, unwitnessed, almost unremarkable choice. Before the results, before the crowd, before a single person in their corner believed what they believed about themselves. They decided. And then they moved accordingly. There's a kind of power in that approach that most people never access, not because it's complicated, but because it asks something that feels almost irrational. Act as if you are the best, not perform it. Not construct a mask of confidence you wear to impress people in rooms that make you nervous. This goes far beneath the surface. This lives in the decision you make at 5 in the morning when the bed is warm and no one would ever know if you stayed. It lives in the standard you refuse to lower when every reasonable voice around you says it's fine to let it slide just this once. It lives in whose voice you amplify when fear gets loud inside your own head, and whose voice you silence. This has nothing to do with arrogance. Arrogance announces itself. It needs an audience. What we're talking about has no need for applause. If you're ready to stop waiting for the world to validate what you already carry inside you, drop "I'm in the comments right now. Let's get into it. Subscribe to Stoic Thoughts and turn on notifications. This is exactly the kind of conversation we have every single week. Every real transformation has a point of origin, and almost without exception, that origin point is invisible to everyone else. It's not the championship moment. It's not the promotion, the viral breakthrough, the public recognition. Those are just the moments the world finally catches up to a decision that was already made, quietly, privately, in a space no camera ever captured. Muhammad Ali did not become the greatest the night he knocked out Sonny Liston. That was just the evening the world caught a glimpse of something that had been forged years earlier, in gyms with cracked floors and the smell of old leather, in pre-dawn streets when the city was still completely dark, with no audience but a mirror and the sound of his own breathing. He didn't wait for a victory to give him an identity. He constructed the identity first, and then went out and made the world confirm it. That inversion is everything. Most people operate with the logic reversed. They tell themselves, "When I see the results, I'll start believing." But that's not how identity works. Identity is not a trophy you receive after achievement. Identity is the engine that makes achievement possible in the first place. The results don't create the belief. The belief creates the conditions that eventually produce the results. Think about the story you tell yourself when things get hard. Think about the internal voice that shows up when the progress is slow and the effort feels invisible. If that voice is waiting for evidence before it commits, waiting for proof before it speaks with authority, then it will be waiting for a very long time, because the goalpost never stops moving for someone who hasn't yet decided who they are. There will always be one more result to hit, one more validation to collect, before they finally feel justified in believing. Deciding looks nothing like a grand announcement. It doesn't require a speech or a perfectly worded journal entry. It looks like this. You wake up tomorrow, and from that first moment, every choice you make, how you carry yourself, what you speak into the air, what you tolerate, what you flatly refuse, is made through the filter of your best self, not eventually, not when the circumstances improve, starting with the next hour. William James, one of the architects of modern psychology, made this point with striking simplicity. Act as if what you do makes a difference, because it does. Every single action you take is a vote cast for the identity you're in the process of building. No one else gets to cast that vote for you. And the ballot is open right now. Not after the weight comes off, not after the business grows legs, not after someone finally recognizes the effort. Right now. That's the first crossing. You've just stepped through. Here's where the road gets rough, and it will get rough. That's not pessimism dressed up as wisdom. That's just the honest shape of the journey. The moment you commit to showing up as a different version of yourself, something deep and ancient inside you pushes back. Hard. Psychologists have a name for it. Cognitive dissonance. Your brain, which has spent years optimizing for consistency and for keeping you alive, does not automatically celebrate a new identity. It interrogates it. It pulls up the archive. Every failure you've accumulated, every embarrassing moment you've tried to forget, every person who looked at you and communicated with or without words that you weren't enough. It doesn't surface all of this to break you. It surfaces it because that's the brain's job. It protects what's familiar. The problem is that familiar and great are almost never the same address. Kobe Bryant spoke about this, the internal war between the self that craves comfort and the self that is genuinely capable of something extraordinary. He didn't pretend the resistance wasn't there. He didn't wait until the fear dissolved before he started moving. He trained alongside the discomfort day after day until his nervous system stopped registering it as danger. That's not a gift. That's a practice that anyone can build. So what does that internal war actually look like in a real life? It looks like setting an alarm with intention and then negotiating with yourself the moment it goes off. It looks like making a clear commitment in the evening and finding creative reasons to modify it by noon the next day. It looks like having something real to contribute in a room and choosing silence instead. These are small surrenders. Individually, they seem harmless. Compounded across months and years, they construct a life that is almost unrecognizable compared to the one you could have been building. The answer is not to fight yourself with more aggression. That approach produces exhaustion, not transformation. The answer is to make the identity so solid, so genuinely internalized, that the resistance doesn't have equal footing anymore. When your behavior is rooted in who you are rather than in how you feel on a given Tuesday morning, it stops being negotiable. You don't debate brushing your teeth. You don't hold a referendum on whether to breathe. The standards of your best self should carry that same quality of non-negotiation. Epictetus said it with the precision of someone who had tested this under real conditions. You have power over your mind, not over outside events. The war inside you is the only war with stakes high enough to deserve your full attention, and you don't win it by eliminating doubt. Doubt may never fully leave. You win it by refusing to hand doubt the steering wheel. That's the shift, from passenger to driver. From reacting to the life happening around you to actively deciding the life you're building. If this is landing for you, hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second and it tells the algorithm that this kind of content is worth putting in front of more people who need it. Everything you've decided, everything you've committed to, now has to make contact with the actual ground, with the calendar, with the unglamorous, unphotographable texture of how you genuinely spend your hours. Because here is the line that separates people who talk about excellence from people who actually construct it. The best operate from a standard, not a mood. Watch how most people function. They train when they feel motivated. They work at full capacity when inspiration shows up uninvited. They bring their best when the conditions cooperate, but motivation is weather. It changes without warning. Inspiration is a visitor. It comes and goes without checking your schedule. Conditions are almost never clean, never perfectly aligned, never fully cooperative. And a person waiting for all three before performing at their highest level will spend the majority of their life in the waiting room. A daily standard operates differently. It's a non-negotiable baseline, the floor of effort, focus, and integrity you bring regardless of what you're feeling, regardless of what yesterday looked like, regardless of whether anyone in your immediate environment registers that you showed up. Michael Jordan did not have good practice days and bad practice days in the way those around him did. He had a standard. And that standard didn't consult his emotional state before deciding whether to appear. In practice, the standard starts with your morning, not with what you consume, but with what you produce. Before the phone, before the noise of the world's priorities overwrites your own, you do something that belongs entirely to you, something that reinforces the identity you're building. 30 minutes of focused work, a physical training session, 10 pages of something that sharpens your thinking. The specific content matters less than the pattern it creates. Every morning you are either reinforcing your identity or quietly eroding it. There is no neutral morning. It extends into language. The best don't spend energy complaining publicly, not because they don't face difficulty. They face extraordinary difficulty. But complaint is a vote, and they've already cast their vote for something entirely different. It extends into how they absorb setbacks, not as evidence against their identity, but as information. It extends into how they treat people when no one with influence is watching. Set the standard, write it somewhere you'll see it, then hold it. Not forever, just tomorrow. Then hold it again the day after. That's the architecture. One non-negotiable day stacked on another. That's how the best are actually built. Share this with someone in your life who needs to hear this right now. This is the part of the journey that no one warns you about with enough seriousness. You will go through, or perhaps you're already inside, a season where you are doing everything right, holding the standard, showing up with consistency, acting from the identity you've chosen, and getting nothing visible back. No results yet on the scoreboard. No recognition from the people whose opinion you'd most value. No one pulling you to the side to say, I see exactly what you're doing, and it's working. The silence in that season is not quiet. It's loud in a very specific way, the way an empty room amplifies every small sound. And somewhere inside that silence, a question begins to form. The most dangerous question available to a person in the process of becoming. What if I was wrong about myself? This is the point where most people don't make a dramatic exit. They don't quit loudly. They retreat, gradually, almost invisibly, back toward the version of themselves that felt safer. Back toward the life that asked less of them. Seneca wrote that it is not because things are difficult that we hesitate. It is because we hesitate that things become difficult. The resistance of this season is not a signal that you've miscalculated your direction. In almost every case, it is the clearest possible signal that you're on the right one. The path worth being on was built to be hard, because difficulty is the mechanism that filters out everyone who wasn't genuinely committed. What you hold on to in that season is this. When no one else's belief is available, yours has to be enough. Not as a consolation, not as a fallback position. As the only vote that was ever going to determine the outcome, every person who built something worth noticing passed through a version of this chapter. The long invisible season where their internal conviction had to outweigh every external signal pointing toward retreat. The work you are doing that no one witnesses is not disappearing. It is accumulating, like pressure building in the dark, like a root system expanding 30 feet in every direction before a single inch of tree appears above the soil. Growth that no one can see is still growth. It may be the most important kind. Believe harder, work quieter, subscribe to Stoic thoughts, because every week we go deeper into exactly this kind of thinking. At some point, and you won't be able to pinpoint exactly when, something begins to shift. It doesn't arrive with announcement. There's no single morning where you wake up and everything is different. It comes the way dawn comes, not as an event, but as a gradual impossibility of the darkness continuing. You've been holding your standard. You've been showing up through the invisible season. And now the compound effect begins surfacing into visible territory. James Clear describes it as crossing the plateau of latent potential, weeks and months of input, producing what appears to be nothing, and then, without obvious cause, everything accelerates. But the acceleration was never the miracle. The miracle was every choice made while results were still invisible. Every morning the standard held. Every moment identity was chosen over comfort. All of it was building, quietly, without receipt, toward this. Here's what compounding looks like inside this specific journey. The confidence that began as a deliberate decision starts becoming a reputation, first with yourself, then with the people who move through your life. The discipline that once required significant effort starts becoming your default mode. You stop having to argue yourself into the work because the work has become part of the architecture of who you are. The standards that once felt like a performance start functioning as a filter. You begin naturally gravitating toward opportunities, relationships, and environments that match the level you've been operating at. People begin to notice, not because you've changed your surface presentation, but because something underneath has genuinely solidified. There is a detectable difference between someone performing confidence and someone who has actually earned their own respect, who has gone through the fire of the invisible season and come out the other side without abandoning themselves. The world responds to that difference. It can feel it even when it can't explain it. This is the moment the truth of the whole journey becomes undeniable, acting as if was never a lie you were telling yourself to feel better. It was a prophecy you were in the process of fulfilling. The distance between who you decided to be and who you actually are has been closing every single day. And now it's nearly gone. You've done the work. Not the kind that makes a good story at a dinner party, the quiet, daily, completely unglamorous kind that no one was watching and no one was applauding. And here you are standing at the far side of the journey you began at the very start of this. Except it doesn't feel like a finish line. It feels like a foundation. That's what becoming your best self actually is. It doesn't terminate, but it does transform in character. The heaviness of trying begins to lift. The constant internal negotiation quiets. What once required enormous willpower now flows from something that lives deeper than willpower. You've stopped acting as if, because the if has dissolved. The gap between your identity and your behavior has closed. There is no longer a performance. There is only who you are. Marcus Aurelius pointed toward this his entire life. Not the conquest of some fixed external destination, but the daily practice of becoming, a direction held with consistency and renewed every single morning. The Stoics never sold a destination. They offered something more durable, a direction. And a direction pursued with genuine consistency will always outperform a destination that exists only in imagination. Your new identity looks like a person who no longer requires external confirmation to feel grounded. Someone who meets a hard day not with dread, but with a quiet kind of readiness. Someone whose standards don't rise and fall with their emotional weather. Someone who, when setbacks arrive, and they will arrive, gets back up with speed without extended self-punishment, not because they're immune to pain, but because they know precisely who they are, and that knowledge is not shaken by a bad week. This identity doesn't make you untouchable. It makes you equipped. There is a profound difference between those two things. The person you were at the beginning of this video was waiting for the storm to pass. The person you are now walks into the storm differently, deliberately, without losing the thread of yourself in the middle of it. Here's what this asks of you going forward. Don't protect this identity like something fragile. Don't keep it locked away from difficulty. Live it openly. Let it be challenged. Let it evolve. Because your best self is not a fixed image you preserve. It's a commitment you renew every single morning when you open your eyes. 7 chapters. 1 truth. You are the best, not because the world confirmed it, not because the results are all in yet, but because you decided it. Because you held the standard when the room was empty. Because you kept moving when everything around you suggested stopping. That's not a small thing, that's not a minor detail in the story of a life, that's everything. Tomorrow morning before the noise begins, make one decision, just one, the kind your best self would make without hesitation. Then make it again the day after. That's not motivation, that's a practice. And a practice held long enough becomes the only life you know how to live. Act as if, because at this point you already are. Now go live it. If something in this landed, if something shifted, drop "I am the best" in the comments. Say it like you mean it, because you do. And if you want more of this, subscribe to Stoic Thoughts and turn on notifications. Every single week we go further, push harder, and build the kind of person that's genuinely rare. You showed up today. You watched this to the end. That already tells me something about who you are. Now go act like it.